I never thought a quiet weekend could turn into something that would haunt me for years. But that's exactly what happened. It started the week I finalized my divorce, papers signed, rings returned, hearts shattered. I was 38, newly single, and trying to convince everyone, including myself, that I was fine. My ex-husband, Daniel, had moved on fast. Too fast. I told people it didn't bother me, but the truth was, the silence in my apartment did. Every sound echoed too loudly. Every empty space reminded me of what used to fill it. Then, out of nowhere, Ethan, Daniel's son from his first marriage, called. He was 25, living nearby, and offered to help fix a few things around my place. He said, "You shouldn't have to deal with everything alone." I almost said no. It felt complicated. But loneliness has a way of softening boundaries. The first day he came over, I opened the door and froze for a moment. Ethan wasn't the lanky teenager I remembered. He was broader now, confident in the way he carried himself, with that quiet steadiness Daniel never had. His smile was easy, but there was something deeper in his eyes, something that made my heart stumble. "Hey," he said, brushing rain from his jacket. "You look good. I mean, better than you did the last time I saw you." I laughed awkwardly, heat creeping up my neck. "Thanks. That's quite a compliment, considering last time you saw me, I was crying on the front porch." He grinned. "Fair point." That afternoon, we worked side by side fixing a leaky faucet and a loose cabinet door. It was harmless, small talk, shared laughter, old memories of the house we once all lived in. But underneath the normalcy, there was something unspoken. Something neither of us dared to name. When he reached over me to grab a wrench, his arm brushed mine. Just a touch. But it sent a wave of heat through me that I couldn't explain. He must have felt it too, because for a moment, he just looked at me, really looked, and then cleared his throat, pretending to be busy again. Later, as he was leaving, he paused at the door. "You know," he said softly, "you don't have to pretend you're okay all the time." And before I could reply, he was gone. That night, I lay in bed replaying that sentence over and over. The next few days, Ethan kept coming by, fixing things, checking in, making coffee in my kitchen like it was the most natural thing in the world. It should have felt strange, but instead, it felt like the one piece of calm I'd been missing. One afternoon, it started raining hard. The kind of rain that traps you indoors, wrapping the world in silence. Ethan was at the window, watching the storm, when he said, "I remember this sound. You used to sit on the porch and listen to the rain. You said it made you feel less alone." "I guess I still do," I said quietly. He turned, his voice low. "You don't have to be." There was a pull between us then, dangerous and undeniable. I looked away first, pretending to busy myself with coffee mugs, pretending that my heart wasn't racing. When he finally left, he said he'd be back tomorrow. I should have said no. I didn't. The next morning, he showed up with paint cans and a grin. "Thought I'd help brighten the place up," he said. We spent hours painting the living room. At some point, I got paint on his cheek. He laughed, swiping it back onto my arm. We were both laughing then, really laughing, until the laughter faded and the silence between us became something heavier. He didn't move closer. Not yet. But his gaze lingered like he wanted to. I felt it too. The electricity, the hesitation, the quiet ache of wanting something you shouldn't. That night, I sat alone on the couch, sipping wine and watching the shadows flicker against the walls we'd painted together. I didn't hear him come back in until he spoke. "Forgot my phone," he said, stepping closer. He didn't leave right away. Neither did I. The tension snapped between us, an invisible thread pulled too tight. He was standing close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating off his skin. My chest rose and fell faster than I wanted it to. "This is wrong," I whispered. "I know," he said. "But it doesn't feel like it." And when his hand brushed mine, I didn't pull away. The storm outside grew louder, thunder shaking the windows. Maybe that's why we didn't hear our own hearts beating so loudly. He kissed me first, soft, hesitant, as if asking permission. But I kissed him back, harder, desperate, terrified, alive. It wasn't about lust. It was about everything that had been missing, the warmth, the connection, the feeling of being seen. For the first time in years, I wasn't someone's burden or disappointment. I was wanted. When it ended, we didn't speak. He just sat there beside me, fingers tangled with mine, both of us knowing the world outside that room would never understand. The next morning, things felt different. Colder. Ethan made coffee but didn't meet my eyes. "You're quiet," I said. He smiled faintly. "I don't want to make this harder than it already is." Later that day, Daniel called. He'd heard I was struggling and wanted to talk. I lied and said I was fine. When Ethan came by that evening, I told him maybe it was better if we didn't see each other for a while. He just nodded, jaw tight. "I figured," he said. "I just didn't want to disappear without saying goodbye." He picked up his jacket, looked at me one last time, and whispered, "I never meant for it to happen. But I don't regret it." Then he walked out into the night. Weeks passed. The apartment was fixed, the paint dry, the silence back. I thought distance would dull the memories, but it didn't. Sometimes I'd find a trace of him, the coffee mug he used, the faint smell of rain on an old sweatshirt he'd left behind. One afternoon, a small envelope arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside was a sketch. Two figures sitting side by side on a couch, their shadows touching even though they didn't. At the bottom, he'd written one line, "Some things don't need to make sense to be real." I stared at it for a long time. I used to think cheating was about betrayal. But now I know it's about the parts of yourself you give away when no one's watching. And maybe that's what Ethan and I did. We gave each other the pieces that no one else ever saw.